What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video. Jordan here. Today I'm actually going to be walking down the Da Nang River. There is no pathway where I am, so I'm actually walking on the road. Hopefully there are no issues and I don't get hit by a motorcycle or a car. The topic of this video is how Vietnam is the future for, well, it's just a place to be if you're a smart entrepreneur that's looking for new opportunities overseas and internationally. I thought this was looking nice, so I wanted to show you guys. This has no relevance to the video, but I mean, look at the size of this property. This is in Vietnam, which is technically a communist country, but until you actually come to Vietnam, I don't think you really know what the country is. I thought it was going to be a bit of a strange country. That's what we're told at school, at least in the West. But it seems to only be communist by name. The thing with Vietnam is that everyone seems to have their own business. They're very entrepreneurial people, and I absolutely love it for that reason. So far, I've been here for 1 year. I'm going to try and explain to you guys as much as I can about why Vietnam is the place to be as a smart entrepreneur, but I could make just like a series of videos on this because there's just so much to cover. It's such a different country, and that's one of the reasons why I love it. And I think that you will too. So why should you consider coming here if you're a smart entrepreneur? Well, even though it's a communist country. Well, look, if we look at what's going on right now over in the West, we have a massive crisis. Okay, Europe is being flooded with immigrants that don't integrate, and that same situation is happening in Australia and Canada. Not going to beat around the bush, that is what's happening, and there's a massive problem with it. In the UK especially, they even have a two-tier policing system, which is why they had riots not that long ago. And the government said that this wasn't going to happen. Like, that's preposterous. We don't have a two-tier policing system. And they ended up implementing it anyway. And this video isn't about the UK and the policing system and immigration, but that is one of the big things that's happening right now in the world. Now, the next thing that you've got to think about is a cost of living crisis. Right, this Grab driver was not happy that I'm walking on the road. You've got the cost of living crisis as well, which is happening all throughout the West. And I can only talk about the English-speaking countries and a little bit of Europe because that's all that I can see. I don't necessarily know if this is happening in other parts of the world, but from my experience, having lived in Asia and Vietnam for a year, but I've lived in almost every country in Southeast Asia so far for a considerable amount of time. The last 5 years I've been traveling around this beautiful region of the world. They don't necessarily have those same problems here because of history and rules and regulations and policies and law and things like that, right? And so, as someone that's been to different countries in this area of the world, Philippines, Cambodia, Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, I can safely say for myself that this region of the world is going to be absolutely booming, and Vietnam is going to be prime and center for just so many reasons, which I'll try and cover today. So one of the things that you'll notice when you come to Vietnam is that there's just such a great atmosphere or personality, or forgive me, I'm not the most articulate person, but there's a very particular way of life here when it comes to actually making money and business and things like that. And they absolutely love it here. They're certainly not communist in the sense that they just get things for free from the state, as you would imagine, or as we have been taught in school. They seem to be communist only by name, but really they're a free market society, I'd say. There's a certain policy that they brought out. I'm not even going to try and pronounce it because I'm definitely going to butcher it, but this policy basically allowed people to start their own businesses, and it gave enterprises, like international enterprises, the opportunity to come to Vietnam and do business here. And because of this new policy, Vietnam has just begun to boom. In addition to the fact that there are trade wars happening between the US and China that have been happening for probably about a decade now, and I think since 2017, Vietnam has capitalized on those trade wars and has just been eating up the deficit of money that has not been going to China and instead has been going to Vietnam. They've been absolutely eating it up, and to their benefit as well. Good on them, because it's allowed the government to pull its people out of poverty. A stark contrast between walking just on a street in the Philippines, for example, compared to Vietnam is that in Philippines, poverty everywhere. You guys are going to have to forgive me. I'm kind of walking slow but fast at the same time. Whilst talking, it can be a bit difficult, but I'll get used to it. There's a stark contrast. If you walk in the Philippines anywhere, like I'm basically in the middle of nowhere. I know I'm not really in a city, but it's kind of the middle of nowhere. It's quite far south of the main Da Nang city because I wanted to check it out. If I was walking around here in the Philippines, you would see a lot of poverty and there's a lot of crime in the Philippines for that reason, because a lot of people are poor, they need to eat. So they rob each other and they kill each other and there's violence. And there's a lot of people from the Philippines that will tell you that it's not dangerous, but it is, guys, compared to some other places. Whereas in contrast, when it comes to Vietnam, a country that was at war not too long ago, who has just come out of poverty, it would seem that, you know, their government actually takes care of them and the people. And as you can see, like, these streets are clean, and I'm kind of walking around a bit of a construction-y area on the side, but there's things happening here. For those of you in the know, obviously a government is going to start doing construction, giving jobs to people in order to pull people out of poverty. It's just what happens, right? I mean, it happens all around the world, not just for poverty, but to, you know, turn on the economy, right? Give it a bit of a kickstart or a kick. So that's what is happening in Vietnam, and for that reason it's actually much safer as well, because the government is doing things to help its people, and because anyone has the ability and the potential to make money. If you walk around the streets where all the houses are, I'm sure I'll do another video on it at some point, almost everyone has a house, and at the bottom of the house is their business. So it could be a B2B business, it could be a B2C business, and this is, for me, it's really cool. And for any entrepreneur that wants to come to Vietnam, it's really cool because it means that everything is very convenient. Whatever you want is just outside of your apartment or your house, assuming that you live in like a busy area. Whatever you want, and it can be, you know, it can be anything from food to shopping. Yes, there's malls and things like that, but everyone has the ability to just make their own business from their house, which I think is freaking awesome. I don't have that in the Philippines, Cambodia, I don't have it really anywhere that I've been. And because of course of the trade wars as well that's happening with China, a lot of the manufacturing is over there in China, and so a lot of the manufacturing companies are bringing their plants, their factories, over to Vietnam. Maybe I'll do a video on that as well. At some point I'll go around some factories. I am going to Hanoi in April, so maybe we'll get a chance to check out some factories. And so it's just given the Vietnamese an excellent opportunity to capitalize on that. And some of the positive things that are happening in this country is the fact that they're all about tech, they're very tech positive, and the government is incentivizing foreign companies to come to Vietnam with no tax. I think for the first 4 years, and then after 4 years it's like a reduced tax or something, which I think is an excellent play to bring people here. So it's a smart play if you're an entrepreneur in that world. Okay, you can also go to places like Dubai and things like that, but the convenience of having things in Vietnam is just not there. I truly believe that Vietnam will be like a mini China, and I hope there's no Vietnamese watching this that get offended by that, because I think it's actually it's not a criticism. You know, I think it's a good thing, because what China has done is out of this world. And Vietnam's a much smaller country, much smaller population, a big population for Southeast Asia, but it's much smaller compared to China. And I think that because of that reason, Vietnam is going to become a very rich, high opportunity country for anyone that wants to come here. And those opportunities are in a variety of different industries. Manufacturing, robotics, tech, they're big on that. Okay? Because obviously with the robots, they have a lot of industry here in manufacturing. They're very big on tech, very big on crypto and blockchain stuff if you're into that. Real estate is another big one as well. You can buy a house here if you're Vietnamese, and your own piece of land. And I mean, you can build a real nice house and you can get all the amenities, and the houses I've looked around are really, really nice and beautiful compared to some of the other places that I've seen in different countries. They really want things to look nice. And I know I'm kind of contradicting myself a little bit here, because I am sort of, like I said, in a bit of a construction-y area, but this is a developing city. If you go to Ho Chi Minh or Hanoi, those are well developed, those are tier 1 cities. I'd say Da Nang is a tier 2, maybe a tier 3, but it's rising fast, and a lot of people are moving here from the Western world, because I'm not going to go into the details on how cheap things are, because that's not what this channel is about. You should already have a bit of cash. Doesn't matter if it's cheap or not, right? It's about quality of life. And you know, I can only speak for myself. I eat breakfast, lunch and dinner out. I don't even cook. I used to cook all the time. I can have gym food if I want. Whatever I want is available to me. I can get anything ordered. There's no massive delivery fees like in the West. Now in Australia, for example, it cost me about $15, $20 just to get it delivered to me. So it doesn't even make sense really getting Uber Eats or Grab. Whereas here it's like, I don't know, it's nothing, right? I'm sure that will change over time as people become more wealthy, but that's the reason why a lot of the manufacturing companies are coming here and why the opportunity is here, because the labour costs are low. But the people here are very entrepreneurial. So even though the labour costs are low, they seem to be able to make, they just know how to make money. Everything they touch here is gold. The weather is always very nice here as well. Right now it's cold, I've got a jacket on, but it's still like nice, clear, bright day, you know. In the summer it does get outrageously hot for even me, and I do like the heat. But if you are someone that likes the cold, Vietnam, at least where I live in Vietnam, in Da Nang, there's a cold period. Unlike Thailand or Philippines or any other Southeast Asian country that I've lived in, they actually have a cold season, which I think is awesome, because you actually get to wear different kinds of clothes. Sometimes that's what I miss about living in Southeast Asia, is it's always hot or always humid or always sweaty, whereas Vietnam has a mix, you know. Sometimes it's nice to wear a nice jacket and go out or whatever, you know, for dinner, and in the evening it's a bit cold and you have to wear like warm clothes and you can dress up nicely. Whereas if you live in Bali, for example, no one's doing that, you know. They're just going to be wearing like shorts, flip-flops, singlet, because it's a hot country. But it gives you that lazy beach type vibe, that island life, which I've experienced myself. I enjoyed it, but I think if you want to do great things in this world, and you want to have a great business in an industry that actually matters, not just info products and things, I think that you need to be in a country that has a proper season, or that has a, not necessarily a proper season, but has like a business atmosphere about it. Because, you know, for example, Singapore, you could live there, it's just hot there all the time, hot and humid, but they're business-minded people. So yeah, that's my opinion. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you've been to Vietnam, if you agree with what I'm saying, if you think the opportunity is here. Everything I've been reading and researching, you know, it's pointing to Vietnam as being the country that's going to contend with Thailand. So if you look at Southeast Asia as a whole, obviously Singapore is kind of like number one in terms of like wealth, but it's a very small country. I mean, it's a city-state. That's how they even label themselves, as a city-state. In terms of countries, Thailand is probably number one. Malaysia's up there too. And this isn't critiquing any country. I love Southeast Asia as a whole, but obviously there's levels to this. No one's going to be, you know, nothing's even. But from what I've seen and read, and from what people are telling me, Vietnam is going to be right up there with Thailand, if not will surpass Thailand. And when I was in school, a lot of these same journals and experts would say that Indonesia is going to be that. But if you go to Indonesia, it's a completely different environment. It's just a completely different business environment. A completely different government. Thailand's a military government, so anything can change there, whereas with Vietnam, it's actually, funnily enough, it's a stable government, because it is just one government. And unless you're someone that really wants to get into politics and you really want to talk about a government and have an opinion, maybe it's not for you, I don't know. But for me, as being a foreigner living in Vietnam, I couldn't care less, as long as they are helping their people and doing the right stuff. And from what I've seen, you know, Vietnam, the government has made it safe. They've allowed people to make money. They're doing all good things. I mean, if you just walk around, it's hard for me to show you in a video, but there's cars down here, like there's Teslas and there's Mercedes and things like that. And this isn't even a tier 1 city. This is just Vietnam. Like, people think of Vietnam as like just a jungle with not much going on. And, you know, people just remember it from the war if you're much older than me. But it's not like that, guys. Ho Chi Minh, Saigon, whichever way you want to call it, and Hanoi, I mean, they're proper futuristic cities. And from here, you can go anywhere around Southeast Asia and around Asia. The links are great. Vietnam is actually an interesting place because it's kind of like East Asian culture. It's very like Chinese-y culture, Koreanish culture, Japanese-y culture. Koreans are, you know, they actually share a very similar culture with Koreans, funnily enough. But to me, it seems like more of a Chinese culture. Again, my ignorance of only having been here 1 year, not even being able to speak the language, but that's just my opinion. Maybe that will change over time, but that seems to be what it is. They don't share necessarily the same culture as Southeast Asia. And I really think the opportunities are here, especially if you're in tech, manufacturing, property. If you're in, you know, one of these big industries, shipping, trade, I also think with e-commerce as well, I think there's a lot of opportunity for you to come to this country and bring something that's going to benefit the country. And I don't think the government and the people are going to take advantage of you like they do in some other places. But let me know in the comments below. Let me know if I'm being naive. Maybe you're Vietnamese and you think what I'm saying is absolute nonsense. Maybe you've been here and you've experienced something completely different to me. Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.